Yes.
One peak.
We'll call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order at 6:37. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Allen?
Here.
Mayor Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Burchett?
Here.
Mrs. Witt?
Here.
Ms. Marcus?
Here. We have the approval of the minutes from the, it says March 9th, isn't it March 23rd meeting?
Yes, I apologize. March 23rd, yes.
Anybody have any changes, any corrections? Hearing none, they are approved. Finance Director,
No report, thank you.
City Manager,
I have no report, Ms. Marcus, thank you.
Mayor,
No report, thank you.
Law Director,
No report, thank you.
Clerk of Council.
No report, thank you.
Okay, so we'll go into business, the purchase of John Deere Gator.
No?
No.
That must be last week.
I think you're on the wrong one.
Well, is full. Maybe I did get on, yeah, I guess I did get on the wrong one. What I get for looking at these cheat sheets. Okay, well, going to recommend Barrett paving materials for 2023 Cobblegate improvements.
Yes, Matt was unable to attend the meeting tonight, so I will handle this. This is for the completion of Cobblegate. You will remember that the initial bids came in over the 10%, and so we decided to, council kind of understood the process, and that you tasked me with trying to pursue additional dollars from the Montgomery County program. And we were able to do that. We got an additional $50,000, and then council recently authorized some additional dollars to hopefully fall in line with where we thought a rebid would come in at. And that did. Those bids came in on March 31st, and the lowest and best bid was Barrett Paving at a total cost of $416,930. Barrett Paving Materials has done a lot of acceptable work in the city over the years, and it is recommended to award this project to Barrett Paving Materials in the amount of $416,930. I have also had an additional conversation with Tawana at Montgomery County regarding the CDBG dollars, and she said they're good to go on their end as well. That is reimbursable grant dollars in the amount now of $200,000 to help cover a significant portion of this project.
You may have any question or comment?
I'll make a motion that we have legislation drawn up to give Barrett Paving the 2023 Cobblegate improvements.
Please.
Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mrs. Witt?
Yes.
Mr. Burchett?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Marcus?
Yes. The next one is the bidding threshold.
Yes, I believe the law director is, she had some study work. Now, I did as well, however, I'll let you, so I'm not
Yeah.
advocating for my own
Sure,
spending
yeah,
threshold.
that's fine. So I had
Okay.
sent some information to council, I believe, a week or two ago about this, because we indicated we would do some research. And I know the city manager did some research with the GovTech communities, and I also researched some codified ordinances online from cities around Ohio. The upshot of that was the general threshold bid for competitive bidding around Ohio that I saw, the most prevalently basis used was $50,000. And I believe that's probably because the ORC has a $50,000 threshold bid for competitive bids in the Ohio Revised Code. So it looks like a lot of the Ohio cities have basically mirrored the ORC. Now, given the home rule authority of the city, I believe we could modify to enact whatever competitive bid threshold council decided was appropriate for the city, given the expenses and purchases that the city needs to make here. So I think you just need to consider what you feel would be a reasonable amount, and then we could look at raising that amount, or however you want to address that, because currently what it is anything under 20,000, the city, an expense under 20,000, the city manager can authorize without legislation, 20 to 25 requires 2 proposals, and anything over 25 requires a competitive bid. So I believe the conversation we had last time was, given the rising costs over the course of the last year or two, it might be prudent to consider raising that competitive bid threshold. So with that information, I don't know if the city manager would like to add anything to that.
I'll add in discussion with MVCC, the most prevalent was 50,000, and Springboro had just recently, over the last year, adopted and raised theirs to 50,000 as well. I believe West Carrollton was still at 25,000. But the most prevalent number that Martina and I each did our own work, we kind of came up to ultimately the same result. And some of them, or it was MVCC themselves, because they operate very closely to a government, that they modeled their legislation, and I do not feel this needs to be done, but they modeled their legislation in a way that if ORC's amount ever changes, the Ohio Revised Code, it automatically matches whatever that new amount is. Which is not a suggestion here, I'm just letting you know that I think a lot of them are modeling the dollar amount that is currently identified in the Ohio Revised Code.
50,000 seems a little high to me. Would 35 work for most things?
So surely, probably not. I don't know, it could maybe help, say, with the fireworks, because they've been coming in at that, 25 range, and I know that they've been pushing upwards of 30. But that 35 range would not assist with some of the limitations we've had in our ability to buy city vehicles or trucks, and to be honest, some of them are exceeding 50,000, but some of them have been coming in that 40 to 50,000 range, and having to go through the process and all the legislation has delayed the ability from several of the department heads to be able to move forward and acquire those vehicles. So I think anything, if you're wanting my honest opinion, I think if we don't go to 50, there's not much of a difference in staying at 25 or moving up to 35 or 40, because it's not really going to address the need that we're currently experiencing through our departments. So.
But is a delay that critical? Just until the next council meeting, or?
Oh, there's not, you don't have to make a decision this evening by any means. If you want, some of the department heads may be able to discuss their struggle with trying to purchase some of the equipment that falls within that range, but ultimately, I don't think that we're expecting legislation have to be moved forward tonight. You can kind of sit on this and think about it, and we can have an additional conversation if you would like as well.
Yeah, I don't know that it would do much good with the purchasing of vehicles anymore. It seems like they're up into that over $50,000 range for the most part.
So I'll chime in. There's been plenty of opportunities that the police department's had that we've found vehicles sitting on a lot that could have replaced something that we needed, but we couldn't buy it fast enough to get it bought. Even if it's budgeted, it still had to go through the council process, and we missed out on those purchases. And I think just off the top of my head, I think that's happened 2 or 3 times in the last couple of years. So I would be in favor of the state going whatever the state says, the 50,000 right now. I think that would give us some flexibility in spending our budget when we need to.
And were they under, the ones you found, were they under 50,000?
Yeah, so the cars, so we buy the shells of the cars, and they were $26,000, $27,000. Now they're at 42. So it still helps us. I'm sure there's some other examples. The street department's got equipment that's well over the $25,000 mark that we're buying. Building management projects.
For instance, like a concrete project or something, the entryway to the city building here, we were getting multiple prices that were coming in a little higher, to the point that we would have exceeded that if we wouldn't have had some better bids come in.
I think it also holds true with the lockers. Was that accurate, or were they over that?
No, the lockers were still state bid. We ended up getting them better than state bid,
Okay.
but yeah, lockers were still state bid.
So it's just not related to vehicles as well. And again, we know the struggle that we just had with the fireworks.
Yeah, it's obvious we do need an increase. It's just to get to that level that everyone's comfortable with it.
Sure.
I mean, you guys know the struggle. I kind of brought it to attention with the fireworks. It's, increasing every single year since, well, I've only been doing this for a year, but since I've been here, they've just been raising those prices. So that becomes a problem with us, just trying to secure them and get them in. So that's what we're running into. So.
Yeah, but if it doesn't come to us, how do we know what's being bought?
It would be my responsibility to provide you a report of anything between the the prior dollar amount and the 50,000. I could take on that responsibility
And
and
if
keep you
it's,
aware. And of course, you would be approving it in the annual budget that we go through every August and September.
what if it's not in the budget?
If it's not in the budget, then it absolutely has to come to you because we're modifying the budget at that point. And this does not have an impact on any of our required transfers now if we're moving money from one capital line to another, or from personnel to operating or anything like that. Those regulations stay in place. So all of that would always come to you.
So anything budgeted, it would be budgeted, that would deal with that up to $50,000.
Correct.
Be a budgeted item.
It would be a budgeted item that we would have already had a discussion with you on during the budget season. Yeah, and again, I could take on the responsibility of letting you know so that you would understand the activity that is currently taking place in the departments. For example, if we did buy a police cruiser and typically it came to you and now it wouldn't, I would let you know that we're buying one and what year it's replacing and when we expect to receive it, so. And I would rely on the departments to provide that information to me, and then I would forward it on to you.
Raise from 25 to 50 does seem kind of large because you're doubling it. With the inflation the way it is, it seems like prices are changing almost daily, and there's cases where we just are going to need to act to save money.
I don't disagree.
I'll give you one example. The Gator that you guys approved, we were able to secure that price at $26,000. If you went there today, that Gator's $35,000. So by us being able to act, if this would have been a week later, that Gator would be up, $10,000 from what we purchased it at. It wouldn't be. Now that was still over the $25,000, but if it was raised and that issue came up again, it basically would have saved the city $10,000 for the same piece of equipment. And the prices are changing month to month on certain equipment. So that's one of the examples in the street department.
No, I think we all know it needs to be raised. We're just, 50,000 just seems like a big leap.
I've
But I
had
understand.
conversations with staff letting them know that this is something that you've been mulling over for a while, and we just wanted to bring it to a committee of the whole to initiate that conversation again.
We do need to make sure that we keep an eye on this, that it reported to council and so forth, because that is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And with the wrong person doing it, it could cause us problems. I'm
Again,
not thinking
I
of just
would,
today, I'm thinking of the future, and who's
Right.
gonna be in these chairs,
Who's gonna
and
be in
your
your
chair.
well,
at
I'm
some
not working
later
until I'm
date.
90, all right, I don't, no.
Well, haven't you heard, Mike?
Uh-oh.
I just think, times change, we have inflation now, and it may
Yes.
continue to rise. And again, we can think about this till next meeting. I just think that, if all these, it's not gonna be an incredible amount of either project or vehicles that's gonna fall in this $25,000 to $50,000 range. If it's pre-budgeted, or if it's something that has come up, then Mike brings us ahead of time for us to make that decision. I put faith in department heads to do the right thing. And if we can monitor how many of these items, hypothetically, if we raise it to 50,000, we can monitor how many are falling into that range. necessarily worth it. Because we have to give them flexibility to get the things for our city when they're there.
I kind of agree with what Dave just said.
I mean, and we know we have good department heads. We know they don't
Right.
spend like a drunken sailor. I'm allowed to say that.
And I don't think it's all that unreasonable to raise it to 50.
I have one more thing to add, if no one's mentioned yet. So you guys budget, you approve the budget at the beginning of the year, end of the year. There's still before every purchase is made, there's still a multi-step process where it gets approved by Don, the finance director, and then Mike, the city manager. So there's still a process that, hey, we do have this money, that's what it was allotted for, you're within your budget, let's go ahead and spend it. So there's still some checks and balances, it's not the drunken
It's
sailor.
within our VIP software as well. And again, any of those purchases, the department heads would come and talk to me and let me know, hey, we want to pursue this, here's the opportunity. So it wouldn't be like it was just entered into the system and there was not a conversation between me and the department head. They always come in and we have those conversations,
I think as long as
even at
you're
the current
informed,
spending
but
ratio.
as long as you keep us informed, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think I'm more comfortable with it, the 50,000 now, for sure, than I was before the conversation.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock.
I would just add, I think if you don't go maybe to that 50, we're going to be talking about this again in next year. So it's just going to, we're just going to continually talk about it until we actually do finally reach that point.
Right.
So.
It's really the supply issue as well. Everything is going up, but it's also the availability of what we're buying, whether it's equipment, a vehicle, a study, whatever, whatever it may be.
And we all know that every time you go to the grocery, you get sticker shock.
I would also add that most of the equipment that they would be purchasing in that dollar range is either state bid pricing or cooperative purchasing through some of the different programs that we're a member of. So, the prices that we are paying are, theoretically some of the lowest that we can get, unless, say, for instance, Chris was able to find some pickup trucks this year for a very good price. Can't remember if they were less, but they were available, and they were local, and they were, very good prices. So, I mean, everyone does do their shopping and gets their prices, and or checks the cooperative purchasing programs to see if we can take advantage of those prices.
I'll make a motion, we have legislation to increase our bidding threshold from $25,000 to $50,000.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Burchett?
Yes.
Mrs. Witt?
Yes,
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy?
Yes,
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Marcus?
Yes. The next item is the modification to MCO 333-11. Let's have a discussion on this.
I guess I'll initiate that, and Chief, if you feel like you want to jump in, please go right ahead. So this is basically in order for us to remain consistent with the Ohio Revised Code. As you may have seen, the ORC recently was changed or went into effect. I believe the legislation was a few months ago, but it just went into effect recently regarding prohibiting texting while driving. So the import of this is simply to change the MCO provision to mirror the ORC provisions regarding those recent changes. Chief, if you want to add anything to that?
Nope, that's it. The biggest change that the state made was it's a primary offense now. There's also some substantially limiting factors, what you can actually do holding a phone in your car. Those are the big changes. We already had a texting while driving ordinance. This would just change that, like Martina said, change it to mirror the state, which we do for most of our ordinances, so.
so do we need legislation?
Yes, sorry,
on
we
that?
need legislation.
Okay, I make a motion that we have legislation drawn up on the texting as outlined by the law director.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Witt?
Yes,
Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy?
yes,
Mr. Burchett?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah,
Mr. Darney?
Yes,
Ms. Marcus?
Yes. The final item is the supplemental appropriation request, Economic Development Fund.
Yes, thank you. I will take this one. So we've been very successful at obtaining EDGE grant funding this year on 2 different projects, and they're, two pretty large projects as well. The EDGE grant process happens where the company completes a portion of the project, or, they pay their expenses on a portion of the project, and then they request a portion of the EDGE grant to be paid to them. And so we are to pay them first, and then the county reimburses us for that payment. So because of this, I've been looking at the fund to make sure that we have a positive cash balance for the whole year. It is, we would be in trouble if we go into a negative fund balance. So in talking with the community development director and trying to understand the timing of the projects right now and where the companies are at in their processes, I was looking and have identified a need for additional transfers from the general fund to the economic development fund to ensure that we have the positive cash balance. But it's not an increase in our expenses from the economic development fund. It's just to cover us for the period of time between when we pay the EDGE grant to these companies and then when we get reimbursed from the county. So I can't rely on the county to reimburse us quickly. So I don't want to go close out a month where we are in a negative cash balance. So we will be made whole. This is not an increase in overall expenses or expenditures. But like I said, it's just to make sure we have a positive cash balance. And I did include a chart for you, and it kind of lays out month by month what the outlook is here. And so we're looking at June as the potential month where we may be in the negative, where I would need to have additional cash to fund, to put into the fund. But then you'll see that towards the end of the year, we will have that balance back into the fund. And in fact, that money, the $168,000 is equal to the available budget that we will have, that we've already approved for development and incentives for this year. So with that, I am requesting legislation to have a supplemental appropriation for $150,000 from the general fund to the economic development fund.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
So I would just like to add that obviously this is a positive effort. It's like when we've had to come before, this is not a supplemental, but in doing a supplemental because we've had a prospect come forward that we want to try to attract. And I think Don said it correctly, simply put, these are pass-through dollars. We're giving them out, but we're going to turn around and get them back to Montgomery County. We don't know when the two companies, however, may finish enough of their project. As soon as, I think it's 25 or 50% that they're able to be reimbursed up front. The rest doesn't come until they've actually created all the jobs that were pledged in the effort. But nobody knows how quickly they could come and complete enough of the project that is eligible for the EDGE dollars. And then all they have to do is send us invoices proving that they've spent those dollars. And then we have to initiate our process. So really, this is a safeguard.
Well, that's
Make sure
to
that we're
prevent
always in the positive.
any fund showing an negative balance.
I'm sorry?
That's to prevent showing a negative balance throughout the year.
Yes,
Right.
correct.
Yes, yeah. That's all I have.
I'll make a motion. We have legislation drawn for a supplemental appropriation for $150,000 in additional transfers from the general funds to economic development fund.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Doherty,
Yes.
Mrs. Witt,
Yes.
Mrs. Allen,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy,
Yes,
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Burchett,
Yes.
Ms. Marcus.
Yes. We have no other business. Nobody appearing before council. Moving to staff and council report. I'm gonna pick on the police department this time. Start with
I have no report, ma'am. Thank you.
fire department,
No report. Thank you.
park and rec,
No report, thank you.
street maintenance,
No report, thank you.
building maintenance.
No report, ma'am. Thank you.
I guess right. I'm seeing new faces there, and I'm calling it, I'm not sure who's who. Thank you. Clerk of council,
Nothing, thank you.
city manager,
I have nothing further, thank you.
Mayor Murphy,
nothing, thank you.
law director,
No, ma'am, thank you.
finance director,
I have nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Allen. Nothing to report, thank you. Mrs. Witt,
Nothing to report, thank you.
Mr. Miller,
Nothing further, thank you.
Mr. Dougherty,
No report, thank you.
Mr. Burchett,
No report, thank you.
and I have nothing, so this meeting is adjourned at 7:03.